Jets fans, this might sound crazy, but the starting quarterback for the New York Jets in 2026 does not matter. Now, that sounds crazy because the quarterback position is the most important position on a football team. But it's not crazy because when you look at the options, it just goes from bad to worse. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to Jets Talk Now. I am Paul Fiore. Please click like and subscribe. Sorry, I've been away for a couple weeks, just been getting settled into my job and been very, very busy. But thought it would be a good time to hop on here a couple of days before the legal tampering period opens up for free agency and talk a lot about the things that are happening in Jets universe. And certainly there's a lot. Real quick, Breece Hall signed a franchise tag. Well, he didn't sign it. They gave him the franchise tag. Sounds like they're looking to work out a long-term deal. You know, I had spoke about this in the last video. I thought it made sense. I thought he was coming back after they decided not to trade him at the trade deadline. We'll see if they work out a long-term arrangement. Combine happened. Combine, I don't think it moves the needle that much, except in a negative way. The only negatives that I heard coming out were, the Bain discussion at 2 is likely not going to happen. Maybe, I guess, some positive were the quarterbacks that, maybe the Jets might consider taking a dart throw on. We can talk about those guys too. But really right now we're talking about the legal tampering period and who's going to be the quarterback for the Jets in 2026. I don't care. And that's not because I have zero rooting interest in this team. I just think it's just a different variation of meh, really, when you look at the options. Unless you're talking about the more controversial options, or them making a big move. And for all indication right now, there just doesn't seem to be that. Now, if they come up with some crazy big move, certainly that changes the game. But, I doubt there's a trade for Fernando Mendoza that will actually happen. I don't think Malik Willis will be a New York Jet, not because of anything other than, two things. I think the Jets aren't going to be willing to pay him $25 million, $30 million a year or $40 million in guarantees over 2 years. I think he's going to have options that are probably more appealing to him. Namely Arizona, potentially Miami. I think more Arizona than Miami now as I play this through my head. And I think Kyler Murray, will likely wind up in Minnesota. So what does that leave us? Well, let's talk about what that leaves us. You could trade, maybe you can't, but you can talk about trading for the Mac Joneses of the world. And some people really like that idea. Or the Tanner McKees of the world, Tyson Bagents, those types of guys. All of those guys I would put in a bucket of, I'm interested if the price is right, but I'm not going to do something that doesn't make sense. Mac Jones for a second-round pick is not something I have any interest in doing. I think it's an absolute act of desperation. And it doesn't play into what I think the plan should be, and I'll talk about that too. Tanner McKee, Tyson Bagent, those guys are 4th-round picks or 5th-round pick type acquisitions. Anything earlier than that just screams desperation again to me. So really that leaves us with who? Well, Geno, Carson Wentz, Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky, that bucket of guys. And you get the point of what I'm talking about when I go through this list. And, we can go one by one. Geno Smith a decade ago was the quarterback of the New York Jets during some of the most miserable times that I can remember as a fan, getting punched out in the locker room, missing 6 to 10 weeks with a broken jaw, fighting with people. He was not a good personality as a Jet. People can say what they want and have revisionist history, but Geno was kind of a jerk when he was here. And he bounced around a bunch, and to his credit, found a way to create a career where over, let's just look at the last 4 years. 2 of those years were quite good. People overrate the 2024 season of Geno Smith because he threw for 4,000 yards. Team won 10 games, but he threw 15 picks in that season as well, and they couldn't wait to get rid of him for Sam Darnold. So they went from one Jets cast off to another. Kubiak got rid of him there, and then Kubiak gets rid of him as he was a Raider quarterback last year, throwing 17 picks, 32 interceptions in the last 2 years. Geno Smith has been bad. Geno Smith, personality-wise, people say he's matured. I don't know if you guys don't remember this, didn't look at it, but he gave the bird to the Raiders fans last year after Week 12 loss. He went to the podium and was a sarcastic kind of a jerk to the reporters, calling everybody experts, and then proceeding to, say that you might as well just blame me for everything that's bad in your life. So Geno still has a bit of immaturity in him, but would he be potentially fun to just let him sling the ball around and be a less affable version of Jameis Winston? I guess. Carson Wentz. I mean, I guess you can point to when he was with Reich and he had his best season with Reich. It was a good season again a decade ago. It also the wheels went off the car when he was together with him in Indy. Carson Wentz, I thought he was murdered on the field last year. Tough son of a bitch, but my goodness, he took a beating. I can't see a world where Carson Wentz is QB1, maybe QB2, but God knows it's probably an option. Derek Carr hasn't played in a year and a half. People will say how terrible he was. In the same breath, then say that Geno's good is kind of crazy. Derek Carr's last full season in New Orleans was 1,000 times better than what Geno put on tape the last year, and got off to a really good start in 2024 before he got hurt. So, but Derek he's no solution. I mean, he's coming off of a year and a half of not playing. His best years ever were with Musgrave as his OC. Maybe that's a decent move, but I would view Carr as ceiling maybe higher than Geno, but floor might be lower. Marcus Mariota looked like a competent backup in 2024. Not so great last year. Probably won't get you through an entire season. Mitch Trubisky as a backup for Josh Allen's been fine, but we know what he is. So, I mean, again, what's the point of this? Do you guys look seriously at any of those 5 names, or I can name the rest after that, as difference makers for 2026? Like, there just isn't a difference maker on that list. This is going to be a team that the quarterback is a game manager who just needs to run the offense. And, I said this on a tweet on X and got some crap, but, I have zero expectations going into 2026 from a win-loss perspective. And that's not being a negative fan. That's just being realistic about what this team is going into the year. I think they're doing the right things strategically. They've piled up a bunch of draft capital. But, to me, this is a rebuild. And a rebuild doesn't happen in 1 year. And when you're in a draft that there's only one quarterback that you should only take in the first round, you're left with the scraps of the vets or trading for guys like we talked about. I don't think Jacoby Brissett, by the way, would be a tradable. I don't think the Arizona is going to trade him. His name gets mentioned a lot. He won 1 football game last year, and he was awful when he was with the Patriots. They couldn't wait to put Drake May in. So, again, his numbers looked okay. But we can have this argument about how numbers don't translate into wins and losses sometimes. And you could look at Aaron Rodgers in 2024 when he was the Jets quarterback. He had decent numbers. They won 5 games. People couldn't wait to run him out of town. So, don't give me Jacoby Brissett's going to somehow win us 8 or 9 games. Don't give me Geno's going to somehow win us 8 or 9. If the Jets win 8 or 9 games next year, somehow by a miracle, it's going to be because a couple of things happen. The defense is lights out, unbelievable, to the level of the Saleh years, or how Minnesota's defense was really good last year. Minnesota won 8 games last year with terrible quarterback play. that maybe gets you more wins than you would expect at the quarterback because the quarterback's not responsible for the wins. Or one of these guys has a Fitzpatrick season that the Jets went back and, everyone gets all excited, talks about the Fitzpatrick season. They didn't even make the playoffs that year, but let's use that as the example. The one name on that list that potentially gives you that to me is Derek Carr, just because he's 33, 34. And if he's healthy, maybe there's more of a ceiling with him than any of those other guys I named, but the more likely path is they're not good at quarterback, and that they are at a quarterback deficit at every matchup they have during the season. But who cares? Like, is anybody really going into 2026 optimistic that this team is a 9-win, 10-win football team? Even if they have a good free agency, even if they have a really good draft, you can't come off of a 3-win season and say this team is going to improve and become the Patriots of 2026. The Patriots had the quarterback. That's why that turnaround happened. The Commanders had the quarterback. That's why the turnaround happened. The Jaguars brought in a new head coach who changed their entire system and got the most out of Trevor Lawrence. That's why that turnaround happened. The Chicago Bears brought in a new head coach, changed everything. That's why the turnaround happened. The Jets don't have that. They're bringing back the same head coach, a new offensive staff, a new defensive staff. That's fine, but they don't have the quarterback. So even if Reich is good, and even if Glenn does a good job on defense calling plays, you can't go into this season saying this is an 8-9 win team. And do you really think the Jets are going to go nail this free agency with some high-end crazy talent? That they're probably playing in the pool of getting really good players that can help build the foundation, but not going to sign Tyler Lindenbaum. He's not going to be a Jet. It's not going to happen. They're not going to sign Pierce as wide receiver 2 and pay $25 million a year. And that's okay. They shouldn't. That's not where they are. They're one of the youngest teams in the NFL, and they don't have a starting quarterback right now. So to me, this whole we're fighting with each other over Carson Wentz and Derek Carr and Geno Smith. Like, I don't start any of them. Cares. Here's what I want to do. Accept the 2026 QB situation as it unfolds. Unless they do something crazy and make a big trade for Fernando Mendoza, which I don't think is going to happen, just accept it. This is not going to be a good quarterback room. It's not. What should it be? It should probably be 1 or 2 vets, one older, one younger, and a rookie dart throw. That should be the room for 2026, and just be okay with it. You'll feel a lot happier if you just resign yourself to a roster that is being built without a quarterback set up to win. You should be okay with that. Focus on building the roster. What I mean by that is the Jets have picks 2, 16, 33, 44. All 4 of those guys need to be starting caliber players, hopefully a Pro Bowler or 2 in that group. Build the team. Fix your defense. Get your wide receiver 2. I think safety help's really important too. You can make those decisions. I would not be drafting a guard in the first 4 picks. I'm sorry. I know AVT is likely gone. I know John Simpson is likely gone. You don't need to waste premium draft capital in the first 2 rounds on a guard. You will be fine. 4 out of your 5 positions will be set on the offensive line. Either sign somebody in free agency who is, actually they should do both. Sign somebody in free agency at guard who is serviceable, and then be like a normal organization and draft maybe in the 4th round or come back into the 3rd round. Draft a guard you can develop. Don't waste 2, 16, 33, or 44 on a guard. You need edge help. You need safety help. You need wide receiver 2. You need defensive tackle. You need things that I think are more important at premium positions than a guard. 1 position out of 5 can be mediocre and you'll be okay. Don't act desperate, number 3. What does that even mean? Desperation to me is going to the 49ers and giving them a second-round pick for Mac Jones. And I know Bart Scott, Carlin, and others are proponents of this strategy. I don't get the whole move. He is on the final year of his contract. If you're giving up a second-round pick for Mac Jones, you're extending Mac Jones, which means he's not a one-year solution. You're betting on him being more than 1 year. He's not getting traded on a $4 million contract and not getting extended if you trade the 33rd or 44th pick for Mac Jones. And you know what? We have no idea if Mac Jones, what is Mac Jones? Is he a top 15 quarterback in the NFL? I don't think so. Do I think that the guys that are coming in the 2027 draft have higher ceilings than Mac Jones? Yes, I do. I think he's perfectly fine as a low-end QB1 and a high-end QB2. He is not the guy that I think is going to take this team to the promised land. And you know what? I want my quarterback for the next 10 years. So I'm not there with Mac Jones in the second round. You tell me you can get a fourth-round pick for Mac Jones? Go. Tanner McKee, I don't get the love. The guy has not played well at all in an NFL football game. We are going by preseason football and the fact that he's, 6'6", from Stanford, has a Frank Reich connection? Fourth round, fifth round pick at most for Tanner McKee. Will Levis, he showed some flashes his rookie year, and then he was awful after that. He turns the ball over a ton. I like Will Levis's physical traits. I would be willing to give up a fourth round pick for Will Levis, or a fifth round pick. I'm not giving up a third round pick for Will Levis. I'm not. And neither should the Jets. That is an act of desperation. And I am hopeful that they don't think that way. And when I hear names like Carson Wentz and Geno Smith, I'm thinking, part of me thinks the Jets are actually following my plan here. Preserve draft capital for 2027. Be smart. Don't give up any assets for next year, not only at quarterback, but in multiple positions. This is considered a highly talented group of football players. And you have 3 first-round picks in 2027. You have a ton of draft capital in 2027. You will have the flexibility to do whatever you want in 2027 if you just take a breath and allow this to play itself out. Finally, target your franchise QB in 2027. And now I will hear from many, many people that strategy is crazy because you have no idea what this draft class will look like in 2027. You're right. But Arch, Julian Sayin, Dante Moore, Mensa, CJ Carr. I mean, I think there's Mestamaker, Lenoris Sellers. 3, 4, 5 of these guys are going to break out and be better than anybody behind Fernando Mendoza this year. So I don't want to waste my 16th pick on Ty Simpson. I don't think he should play if you draft him. So drafting him 16 means you're going to play him. I'd be okay with drafting him at 44, but he's not going to be there. Let's just be honest. So I like, my strategy and mindset is put Geno in there. I don't care. Put Mariota in there. I don't care. Go get Derek Carr. Fine. I don't care. Get one of these other younger veterans at the right price on 4th round, 5th round draft picks. That's fine. Go draft a Nussmeier, an Aller, a Carson Beck, Taylon Green, the 4th, 5th, or 6th round. Pick your fighter as a lotto ticket to play late in the season. But build the roster. Be competent on defense and coaching. Prove that you're a good head coach, Aaron Glenn, by making sure the team is ready to play. If you're losing games 21-17, 17-14, cool. You should, I'm going to say this, and it's going to piss off a lot of the tankers because I'm not a tanker and I'm not some crazy optimist. If the Jets go 5-12 this year and the defense looks middle of the road, and Aaron Glenn looks like he just really needs a quarterback to finish up the things they've been doing because Muji's done a good job in the draft and free agency, I'm okay with bringing him back. I am. I've always said this is a 3-year rebuild. The way that changes if the team goes 2-15 and they're getting their doors blown off every week when Aaron Glenn has just taken over the coaching of the defense, then he can't come back. But giving him a third season and a shot at the quarterback isn't the end of the world like some people think it might be. Caleb Williams proved that. Drake May proved that. I think Jackson Dart's going to prove that. You can draft the guy then gets fired, you bring in a new guy and fixes it. Okay? It's just the reality of it. But I think Glenn deserves that unless he's a complete disaster this year. And I don't think he will be. I actually think that the Jets won't be they may not be much better in the win column, but they'll be more competitive. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Now, the reverse scenario of that is one of these guys has the Fitz year and the Jets win 8 or 9 games by some grace of God. And they don't make the playoffs, and now they're picking 14th or 15th. People are going to say that's a doomsday scenario. Why? They still have 3 first-round picks. Do you really think, let's say there's 5 guys that could be QB1 in the draft, or 4 guys. If the Jets are drafting 14th or 15th, they will be able to make a move to move up to get one of those guys. They'll have enough draft capital to do it. And you also don't know who becomes a free agent that might become interesting, or who becomes available in a trade that would be very interested in your draft capital for 2027. Build the foundation and make it ready to win with the right quarterback, and then get the quarterback in 2027. My realistic view, and what I think is going to happen, Jets are going to go, I'll revise this after free agency and the draft. I think the Jets are a 5-win football team this year at best. I looked at the schedule. I don't see, when, especially on the road, where the Jets have pick a quarterback where they would have a quarterback advantage. And until Glenn proves otherwise, a coaching advantage in many of these games. You want to say they have an advantage against Miami? Sure, Miami might intentionally be tanking, but we know how this works. They'll probably go 1-1 against Miami. Buffalo is loading up. You're going to lose to Buffalo both games. New England, let's see what they do in free agency. My guess is they're going to load up. You're not beating New England. You're just not. So in your division, you might get 1 win. Who else are they playing? The Browns? Okay. You probably can beat the Browns. We'll see. Like, is Watson playing as QB1 and how is Monken as a head coach? We have no idea. I call that a coin flip game. The Cardinals, if the Cardinals go out and get Malik Willis, that's a road game. You're going to put that in the win column for the Jets? Look at the schedule. It's freaking brutal. They play Detroit. They play the Chargers. I mean, the schedule is unforgiving. They have the Raiders. You could say, yeah, maybe they could beat the Raiders. But do you like Aaron Glenn and pick a vet QB against Mendoza and Kubiak and Genti and whoever else and they're probably going to draft, a Mekhi Lemon or someone like that now because of the trade they just pulled off? I mean, at best, it's a toss-up. At best. Again, does that mean they're going to go 3-14 or 2-15? No. If they do, it probably means everybody's fired. But I think the 5 wins is probably the ceiling right now. And I'm okay. I mean, I think we should be okay. I don't think that's the end of the world. And I know it sounds crazy as someone that's watched this team be terrible for so many years, but there's no quarterback you're putting in place this year that, in my mind, that gets you to 8-9 wins. Again, I could be wrong. They could go draft Ty Simpson. He proves out to be the next Jackson Dart. But guess what? How many games did the Giants win last year? They were brutal. Now they found their quarterback, so maybe that happens. But I just think we need to look at it very realistically. Very simple. Accept the situation as it is. Whoever they get, they get. Build the roster. Don't act desperate. Preserve your capital for 27. Get your franchise QB. And honestly, just because we have not nailed the quarterback in the draft previously does not mean you should stop trying. The best way to build the franchise with where they are right now is finding a young quarterback that can become QB1 for the next decade. So I look forward to free agency. I look forward to all the notes that go up on X where people are freaking out. Muji's asleep. Why are we getting these guys? Holy crap, Glenn didn't even get Anzalone. All of those things can very likely happen. If you were a betting man, you'd probably bet on it. The truth of the matter is the draft is important. Getting foundational talent that can play at a reasonable contract where you're not blowing a bunch of capital on guys that aren't going to be, here long-term or be impact players long-term is more important than making some crazy splash with an Alec Pierce or someone like that. Fix your safety room. And you know what? Just be competent. Be a competent bad team. Be a competent 5-win football team this year, 6-win football team this year. Surprise people, win 7 games, fine. Don't worry about it. If you're a tanker, it does not mean you can't get your QB1 in 27. They have so much draft capital. That doesn't even include what they could do for 28. Like, they could trade so many. I mean, they could do whatever they need to get QB1 in 27. Don't worry about that. I'm not. I'm just going to watch the season and see how it plays out. If Aaron Glenn proves himself that he can get a 3rd year, cool. Anyway, hope everyone has an awesome weekend. Please click like and subscribe. I'll try and be a little more active in my videos. Appreciate everybody for joining. Have a great day.